Hi, Marcus. Pleased to meet you again. I'm just setting up this conversation. We've been speaking about, it's 45 days into the new relationship between Britain and the EU, and almost on a daily basis, we're hearing something constantly about the arrangement, which is impacting upon businesses. So I just wanted to take the opportunity and record a conversation. As an expert, from Trade with Europe Limited, just to get your take and just to see what businesses can do to navigate the complications that were unforeseeable before this break happened. So yeah, pleased to meet. How things going?
Hello, Sean, and thanks for inviting me. So first of all, I'm Marcus of Trade with Europe, and we provide services for UK companies to trade or ease the trade with Europe, or actually make it possible after Brexit. So back to your question, what's happening at the moment? So basically, most companies are trying to find out how to mitigate the risks of trading with Europe. There wasn't very much information on the ground, and right now people have kind of shifted into panic mode, wondering as what to do in order to trade near enough as it used to.
Okay, so what's the first thing that you're advising businesses to do now that UK has left the EU? What do they need to know now at this particular moment in time?
Yeah. So first of all, they need to identify what they need for their business, because different businesses have different requirements.
Sure.
So it's a huge difference if you either trade goods or services, and if you trade goods, it depends on what type of goods, what these goods require in terms of compliance to be traded with the EU.
So are you finding a difference with, when you're saying there's a difference between goods and services? Obviously, the withdrawal agreement didn't cover too much about the services side of that, so that's still very much in process. It's still very much being negotiated as we speak. But with the goods side, are you, when you talk about different kinds of businesses, in your experiences, what kind of businesses, if you can talk about the kind of businesses and different types of goods that you're working with?
Yeah, so I can quickly answer services too.
Okay.
Basically, there are no provisions, as you correctly said, about trading services, and which means that for financial services, banks and any other people who supply financial services now need to be in the EU in order to provide these services to EU companies. So they need a so-called financial passport, and the other thing that might affect UK businesses is qualifications. So some qualifications might not count in Europe anymore, and you might need to renew them, or renew the European version of that qualification in order to offer services there. So this basically covers the subject of services, what has changed.
Okay, and you were talking about the qualification criteria with certain types of good businesses. Do you have an example of that? Anything that comes to mind in terms of those stumbling blocks? I know I'm putting you on the spot a bit.
Yeah, I'm afraid I haven't got a specific example now to hand, because we mainly trade with goods also. But say you are a trainer on, or you offer seminars for certain professions, and they might require qualifications that are recognized in the EU, and at the moment everything is still very much aligned, because the UK has just left the EU, but in the future it diverges further, and therefore that might become more of a problem in the future.
Okay, no, it's interesting. It's still, I think a lot of these things you couldn't foresee when they were going through the whole negotiation process, which we're starting to see now, which is why this conversation is massively interesting and incredibly important. So, we've spoken recently about manufacturing businesses specifically because there's a lot coming out about that, and There was a recent survey that I think it was in the news today, about 300 businesses saying that they were just really not prepared for the complications of the withdrawal of the whole Brexit scenario. So I'm just trying to think in terms of the other stumbling blocks for UK manufacturing businesses. Can you outline what they are?
Yeah, so first of all, it depends on where are the products made. So in terms of products that are made in Britain, it is harder to export these than, say, products that come from outside of the UK and don't need to be imported into the UK before you export them again into the EU. You might as well, because in that case, you might as well rent a warehouse in the EU, possibly set up in the EU, set up a legal entity, and then trade these goods from there. Obviously, UK manufacturing businesses can't do that because they are in the UK. So the products come from the UK, need to be exported. What is good about the trade agreement, and something I hadn't expected, that it's totally tariff-free. Having said that, it's not totally tariff-free because it depends on the country of origin. The majority of the products that are made in the UK are in fact made in the UK, to that extent that they also originate from the UK. If you have a product, say, that comes from outside of the UK, outside of the EU, say from the Far East, from China, and these are raw materials that get hardly further processed in the UK, these might fall under the rules of origin, and they might not be processed enough in order to call them a UK product, because it's essentially a product from outside of the UK. And in this case, there will be a tariff on this. Yeah.
Okay. So,
but
sorry, carry on.
It varies on the type of processing, the type of other materials you add to it, ingredients, whatever, and components, and it varies on the amount of processing done to these goods.
But that sounds quite fiddly in terms of the definition as to how much further processing there actually happens in the UK, because as we know, there's issue for manufacturers who effectively are only assembly units in the UK, whereas a lot of the items are sourced from elsewhere. So they're going to fall foul, I suppose, of a lot of these tariffs, unbeknown to them.
Yeah, in most cases, products that are made in the UK, manufactured in the UK from raw materials coming outside of the UK would be made in Britain. So it would be one of the rare occasions that you'd have a product that comes from outside of the UK and is hardly processed. I think one good example is something I read in the news today, in fact, which was someone supplying wool, as in normal wool for jumpers and so on. And they are special organically grown wool that is only slightly processed in the UK. So I think they do something to the how it's packaged or whatever. So in this case, it is a UK product, but it is too much of it comes from outside the UK. So therefore, it wouldn't comply with the rules of origin in terms that they're totally tariff-free. So these people need to pay tariffs on their products. So that's one of the more rarer cases.
So then I suppose it's going to be, the actual definition of the rules of origin as to what's going to comply as tariff-free effectively when trading with our EU partners or former partners, as it were. So that's going to be incredibly complicated from the point of view of labeling then. That's a massive issue that you hear these days. So can you tell me about that?
Yes, it is. This whole rules of origin thing is very complicated. And the labeling is, again, an additional matter that complicates things further. So certain products need labeling. For instance, packaged food. If you have packaged food, you now need to be in the EU, or you need to have someone in the EU who brings this product into the market, and this address must be on the label. So you need to have an EU address on the label, for instance, for packaged food or other products also, say hazardous products, or any, say, sensitive products. Yeah. So that includes products that come under that need a CE marking. Let's
Mhm.
say toys. Children's toys are sensitive things, so they need to make sure they're not poisonous or anything. So therefore, they need the CE product,
And then some certain
CE
clothing and
marking.
certain categories of health and
Yes.
wellness products.
Yes, exactly. And certain other categories of medical products, especially medical products, doesn't matter whether it's pharmaceutical products or whether it's instruments for, say, scalpels for hospitals, anything like that requires a marking, and in some cases, on top of that, say, cosmetics require also a so-called responsible person in the EU. So anything that you can imagine as being sensitive needs an EU address on the labels in order to be sold in the EU.
So it's quite it covers quite a range of industries. And it doesn't seem to be too many industries that are not affected by the labelling, by the protection requirements.
Um, Hard to say how many. I would have thought maybe 30 to 40% of the products that are in circulation maybe do need it.
Mhm.
Obviously, all of packaged foods always, and then other products, things that don't need it are, for instance, tools and easy easy to consume products without any um, hazardous background in any way. These can be sold freely. So for instance, we have clients that sell bicycle tools. They don't need them.
Right.
That's one
Okay, I'm with
example.
you.
Yeah. Um, but in fact, there are this the trade deal does affect a lot of businesses who want to export their stuff into the EU. And there are various reasons why UK companies need either to set up in the EU or have an agent who basically brings their product legally into the EU market for them.
Sure.
Yeah. And
So then we're looking at so in terms of how to make that happen. What do UK companies need to do? Because there's going to be some elements of when you're going to effectively relinquish some control for your warehousing, that's going to present a series of risks. So how can UK companies mitigate those risks, and in terms of dealing with external partners?
yeah. So basically, you need to, after you identified whether you do need to set up in the EU, you want to decide which route you go. Do you want to do it yourself, set up your own legal entity, or would you like to involve a third party? And the decision between that is either the the cost and the process of going through having another legal entity in a European jurisdiction. Yeah.
Mhm.
And in this case, many companies imagine it as being really difficult. They imagine they have to replicate what they have in the UK,
Right.
and that's not the full picture of it, because yes, you have to do this legal entity and you have to have your accounts for it. But in many cases, these are a lot easier because you don't have a payroll,
Mhm.
and the goods that you export to Europe and that you sell, it's a lot easier to account for them because quite often they are linked to your own system. So already have a record of all the stock movements and the currency movements and so on. So you can use that as a basis for your accountancy. You probably don't have a company car and everything else, all the overheads that you British business has.
Mm-hmm.
So setting up in the EU and running your company is easier than many people think. On the other hand, going through an agent who puts his address on your labels, for instance, and who takes up responsibility for your CE protection, um, can be quite costly.
Yeah.
And you mustn't forget you have to disclose sensitive business data to that agency or that person. It can be a natural person or it can be a legal person, as in a company provides the service. But once you give information away, for instance, how a certain product is made up in order to obtain CE marking for it,
Mm-hmm.
you might have given away some company secrets,
Right.
yeah,
Okay.
and that's the problem with it. And you also give away maybe your client base list of it. So basically, whoever handles as an agent these sensitive data could potentially take over your business or do competition or sell it to the competition or whatever. Of course, there are NDAs and so on, but it's still you have to give out the information in the first
And it's what
place.
you can prove, and it's what you can, it's the amount of cover and the protection that you've got doing that, which is so then, then you're touching upon sort of like the legal implications of doing that, because those are two quite sort of different routes around the problem of making your product accessible in Europe. So obviously they've probably got their advantages and their disadvantages. So, under which situation would you say to go down to one route over another? Or is that something that you would get involved in at all?
Yeah, for instance, we do get involved because we have people ringing up and asking exactly these questions.
Okay.
And we offer we offer companies to set up in the EU, and we can set up for them, and we can also run their company in terms of administration and accountancy, and we can advise them on um, cultural or legal differences between the UK. So basically, we take them by the hand,
Mm-hmm.
because that's something that's very important for UK businesses. A lot of them feel very insecure on European terrain, which is mad, thinking about the fact that this is just on the doorstep of the UK.
Absolutely.
But many would feel a lot more comfortable to deal with um, Americans or Australians, even though they're on the other side of the planet, but because it's the same language and and also an Anglo-Saxon culture, people find it a lot more easier to deal with these people. This is why they would need someone who guides them through um, European how to do business in Europe, basically. Yeah,
And
and
in terms of, because a lot of these businesses, this is a very new thing. So chances are there's going to be many that's had a long successful trading history with companies in the EU. It's just this has changed. This has changed landscape slightly. So there's a lot of things that we've kind of taken on board as EU practices. One area, we're talking about distribution and with your sales and marketing is how marketing to EU-based clients and the whole sort of like GDPR thing. So, do you see there being a divergence away from that, or how does that relate to what you're seeing with businesses you're working with at the moment?
yeah, let's say GDPR, for instance. So GDPR was introduced. It was the European Data Protection Law introduced in 2018, I think. So people got used to it, and there
Yeah.
was this big thing. Everybody needs to comply to GDPR, and then people did. And then 2 years down the line, you now have EU GDPR and UK GDPR, which
Right.
is now the same, but it will diverge in future. And that means that EU businesses now need a data representative. Sorry, UK businesses need a data representative in the EU
Okay.
if they have a substantial number of clients in the EU, and if they do business with them, or if they monitor their behavior, say consumer behavior, and vice versa. EU businesses need a data representative in the UK. in order to be covered. And this is one thing that people don't really know. And if you go on the HMRC website, you will find something like a footnote rather about the fact that you might need one. But even minor breaches can be penalized with up to 10 million euros. So that's not
Wow,
just,
without even realizing it.
yeah. So if you have a business with selling to the EU and you process personal data of EU individuals, this is something to consider.
Because we're talking about, you know, we've covered quite a bit in there. I know that there's absolute mounds of detail within that. So it's from the point of view of actually the logistics of dealing with the EU and the implications of that. And something we didn't touch upon is these additional charges for I think it was in this news article. If I can just reflect on that at the moment, just to yeah. Yeah, it's basically Southwest Manufacturing Advisory Service and the Manufacturing Growth Programme said their study recently showed that almost 2/3 of companies have seen negative price changes within their supply chain since leaving the EU. So we're talking about you know, the actual logistics, and then it's actually the marketing side of it that's added far more complications to the process. So you know how you know what's a company to do? I know that's a very big question, but I'm just wondering if there's kind of an overview answer that you can give, and then scratch beneath the surface another time.
Yeah, well, as far as supply chains are concerned, we still have to see where this all goes. But in general, um, people in the EU as well as people in the UK look now for better supply in their own market,
Mm-hmm.
because yeah, it's a lot more safe to get to get supply out of your own market.
Mm-hmm.
And this also explains why prices are rising, because everybody has to jump through these extra hoops to get their raw materials or whatever ingredients to the people in other markets or in their own markets. So everything that was easy before has just become difficult. And as you said in the beginning, people had no idea how difficult, because let's say the information campaign was rather a misinformation campaign. People were led to believe it's going to be a walk in the park, but it isn't. And I realized that from the calls that reach us, and there are problems even we hadn't considered before, and we think, okay, so from all the small traders, I would say currently maybe 30% that call us do not have a business anymore because it is simply not financially viable. There's nothing left at the end of the day. And by the time they raise their retail prices,
Mm-hmm.
they're not simply not competitive anymore.
Because I was speaking to this one organisation within the last couple of weeks, and it is exactly that. Even though they had a good business in the EU, and they're what you describe as a relatively unique product, because of these surcharges, all of these other factors coming in, it's just not a viable option. Even their customers, who are loyal customers up to that point, couldn't, you know, had to start looking at more locally sourced products, even if that meant paying more. It was just purely from the you know, it was just far less complicated for them to do that. And you know, there's always going to be the financial implications, but then if it takes a lot more time to resolve, then that's got financial implications as well. So it's, you know, it's just understanding what to do for the best. So you know, just to recap, there was sort of two things I think that's been a little bit surprising in the 45 days since the new arrangement is actually in place, and we're talking about the surcharges, which we weren't aware of at the time, which is impacting, as you've just said, a lot of small, medium, and large producers. And there's also the EU presence debate, and I think we've touched upon an element of that earlier, but just wondering if you can sort of expand on what an EU presence is.
Yeah, there's great confusion as to what an EU presence is what I realize. So normally people ring up and say, um, I'd need an EU office, so I need a virtual office address. And then I ask them for what? And they say, well, I need an EU presence. And then I explain to them, yeah, EU presence consists of two elements. The first is a virtual office address or real office. Someone needs to be there in order to receive the mail, some recipient, and then you have a legal place of business, a permanent establishment it's called. But you also need to incorporate a company, and only these two together are an EU presence. So basically, if you say in the Netherlands, you incorporate a Dutch limited company, plus you have an office in the Netherlands somewhere. This is the EU presence. Purely having an office with a nameplate on is not an EU presence. That's not a legal entity.
Can't have a PO box somewhere and just say you're European.
Exactly. That unfortunately that doesn't work. Yeah.
No, but this is, you know, it's actually remarkable what you know, and I suppose there's not a lot of people who are actually aware what. That's why I wanted you to define it, because you know I would say exactly that. If an EU presence, you know, you could just set up a porta cabin somewhere and you say I'm in the EU, but they're not buying that. I take it.
No, unfortunately, it's not that easy. Unfortunately, nothing's easy about this. So all the simple solutions that people thought were possible are in fact not possible.
So
I'm
how can
afraid.
you, because that sounds incredibly, you know, complicated, not only, you know, finding the premises, then you've got to set up as a legal entity. So, you know, how can this be done affordably? You know, can you do it without physical presence and minimum disruption to business?
Fortunately, yes, you can. Yeah.
Okay.
So there are certain service providers who specialize on this. Yeah. Say you go to you can ring up lawyers somewhere on the continent and say, can you please set me up a company, and you can go and seek your service providers, and there are people. We offer this, for instance, that will be able to found a company for you. So we do this, for instance, in the Netherlands and in Germany, because we identified these two countries as two of the best bridges into Europe,
Mhm.
and we recommend the Netherlands for goods, because the Netherlands is just geared up as far as the infrastructure is concerned, as far as the services and the service offers are concerned, with value for money, as far as the legislation is concerned. So we can set you up in the Netherlands, and we can also provide warehousing. So
Right.
you can import into the Netherlands, and then from the Netherlands export into other European countries, which makes it far easier.
So it's kind of like the Netherlands is almost like the gateway to Europe from the UK perspective.
In terms of goods, yes, yes. You have other countries that also advertise businesses to UK companies now after Brexit. One of them is Estonia. They're pretty good digitally.
Mhm.
Poland is another one. Um, Disadvantages, they're all pretty far away from the UK.
Yeah.
Once you are there with one provider, it's very hard to change, because they are there are only very few providers there. Um, these are countries where English isn't generally spoken by a broad mass of people, unlike the Netherlands, of course, yeah, where a lot of people speak English and other languages, and the Netherlands are have designed a lot of services
Mhm.
for international trade. So the virtual telephone reception, for instance, we offer is multilingual. Yeah,
Yeah.
and that's a thing that you can expect to get in the Netherlands. It is hard elsewhere.
Sure. So it's yeah, it sounds it's one of those things. I think it's you know, we you don't want to sell any sort of scary stories. The deal is done, the situation, we are where we are, and now it's just a case of we've best foot forward and how we deal with it. So it's Yeah, it's going to be a challenge. I think it's fair to say that it's going to be incredibly challenging going forward. But it's just a case of understanding how we can navigate this,
Yeah.
and just trying to get hold of the information, the experience, and working with it so we can develop a bit more of a model going forward. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, that does make sense. So basically, what people over the decades of being a single market
Mhm.
of or being in a single market of in one customs union, people got used to how easy everything is. At the same time, the world turned faster and faster. It got more and more complicated, and now there's a separation,
Mhm.
and everything has not unraveled yet because there are many grace periods to be implemented. Yeah, some are 3 months, some are 6 months, some are 12 months, and it will potentially become harder. So I don't want to scaremonger because it is still worthwhile exporting to the EU because the hurdles are a lot higher than they used to be before, but they're still a lot lower in
Yeah,
many respects than to export to the rest of the world. So, and I can only say if you can export, export because it makes your business more resilient. You don't put all your eggs in one basket, obviously.
100%.
Um,
And that's
so
the thing. If you've got to grow, like the UK market is only is an infinite size, and we've got only so much we can do. So we've got to trade with those partners we've got relationships with, and we've still got good EU relations.
yeah, that's right. And I just hope relations will grow again. And I mean, what we've seen so far is the beginning of it, especially you remember the vaccine case that's been in the media and it's been exploited. And this was a first taste of the trade war to come, because basically the UK and the EU are now competition, and
Yeah.
um, and this is we will see more of this, unfortunately. So this is why I think if the trade deal gets renegotiated, if, and I doubt it will very soon, it might even diverge more be, than be an advantage for traders. Yeah. Um,
So there's a clear call to action then. I think it's just to try and get, really understand what your strategy is as a business, where your growth areas, and at the moment the priority is to protect what we've got,
yeah.
and then we can go out looking out for opportunities. But it's trying to sort of navigate that. Find, always in business, getting advice is one of the hardest things a business can do. The right kind of advice that will take them to where they want to be. So just to tell me, we have kind of covered it, but you work with a lot of businesses, so and this is just a real broad overview of the situation. There's a lot more depth involved. So if people wanted to find out more, then what would you suggest?
I would suggest contact advisors who really know what they're doing, because again, there's so many rumors about what could help, and a lot of it is I've heard so much nonsense in the past month, unbelievable. So talk to people who really do know, um, and make a plan what you need for your business. You
Mhm.
might need to incorporate in the EU, but you might not. You might find another way of easing trade into the EU, um, and that's very important. And you really need to look at the detail. Yeah, and there are many options. Don't be scared off if you think, oh bloody hell, these are I can't even see through it. Yeah, it's all too complicated. So don't get frustrated. Maybe leave it for now and return to it, come back to it some other day. But it's definitely worthwhile um, looking at this, because I think as time progresses, the picture will become clearer for many people. At the moment, there's nothing that's trending, and normally UK business people do what's trending until they've found the right solution for their business. For instance, the GDPR thing from earlier on, EU data rep. this should be trending, and I think it will be trending very soon, but it is not right now because people haven't identified this as a problem, but it will be at some point in the future.
So
And
it's just worth bearing in mind, and you know, like I said, 45 days is no time at all to, you know, and we're not. I don't think we're really going to get a grip of this for some time to come. To be
yes,
honest with you.
yeah, that's absolutely correct. Yeah, so we need some time to find out what we need, and I think after that's clear, then trade will carry on, not as it used to be, but how it's possible then, basically, in the future. Yeah.
Definitely. But what I'll do is, because obviously I'm going to be sharing this video, so I'll put your contact details, because I've been fascinated. We've known each other for like a matter of weeks, weeks, months maybe, and it's, you know, always the conversations are really interesting, and I'm learning lots. So absolute pleasure speaking with you.
Sean, it was a pleasure to be invited. Thank you very much. I hope that was helpful. Yeah, and thanks for publishing this also. Thanks a lot.
You're welcome.
All the best. Okay, bye then.